there was a significant problem that needed to be addressed, and that problem was the Bulldog Gang.
I just want to start, Hector, by asking a little bit just about general background. You served. Thank you for your service, of course. And I wanted to ask a movie that came out earlier this year. I was really moved by was this movie Warfare. I don't know if you saw it.
I
Um,
did.
yeah, and I want to just open and curious to know your thoughts. So many of us civilians have no concept. The movies don't reflect these experiences. This one, I remember talking to the filmmakers, and one of them was he was there. It was his story, so he was really trying to replicate it. And I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about the disconnect between what it's like, what you guys all experience, and what the rest of us out here in the world, like, we have no concept. Like, and like trying to communicate that and coexist with in our world where you're like, yeah, you have one idea of what it is, but this is what it really was, you know.
You're talking about combat in Iraq?
Yeah, serving overseas, seeing combat, and like being on the ground.
Well, there's a lot of different variables that play in effect, like being young of age. I was 19 years old when I deployed. You're fairly new to the world, naive, wet behind the ears. The brain doesn't fully develop till the age of 26.
Right.
So you're still learning, and you're very impressionable, meaning like people can kind of mold you to believe what you want to believe or what they want you to believe. So initially, they told us we were going to be going to liberate the people of Iraq. I deployed in 2004. The Iraq War kicked off in 2003. It became very apparent from early on that the people from Iraq did not want us there. They didn't want us there. So that would be a big disconnect. Like, you got government in the United States and the news media saying, hey, they want American troops there. But in reality, they're trying to kill us every day. So that's a big disconnect. And also a misconception would be that, hey, maybe the Iraqi people or anybody in general would love to adopt the American way. That's not the case. They don't want to adopt the American way. They're very happy and very content and living the life that they live. That's their culture. That's their religion. That's their society, right? So for us to, and I'm not like a right wing or left wing type of guy. I'm just speaking from experience and boots on the ground, getting to experience the different type of cultures and people.
So you get over there, right? And there's a shock to the system on all that. And you have a
Absolutely.
certain, like you said, programming and any of it. Look, when I was 19, I was like a lost cause in a lot of ways. So I can only
Right,
imagine like what it's like on the 19-year-old male brain, right?
right.
So, what is the process of recognition like? Like the years of like did it filter through and then at some point you look back and you're like, that's weird. Like that doesn't click. Like that didn't connect for me.
I think it took a lot of incidents over and over for stuff to start clicking, right? For stuff, American troops getting hurt, getting wounded, getting killed. The other side, the opposition, getting killed. And I see it for what it is now, but I'm a 40-year-old man now, totally different perspective and mindset and knowledge. But man, we can go any which way you want to go with this conversation. Like, now, the way I look at it, I don't necessarily blame those people for taking up arms against us, because I would probably do the same if somebody invaded our country. Um, the tactics that they used, although I didn't like getting attacked, guerrilla warfare, those were effective roadside bombs, car bombs, indirect mortar fire. So in reality, you have to respect your enemy. But I have a whole different perspective now on war and government and politics and money and
Yeah.
agendas.
Yeah. Well, that kind of takes me to like you come back, you have a history, you had some history with substance abuse, and
Absolutely.
like, and that, do you think in some ways, like, I don't want to tell your story for you, but some of that was a result of the experiences, right? Growing up, being there, like how did that, it's not uncommon, right? You hear about it a lot. Like,
Correct.
can you,
So
what can you say about that a little bit?
So I believe that well, first of all, I am an alcoholic per the definition, but I have 14 years of sobriety.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. October 2010 was the last time that I drank, or October 31st, 2010. It was Halloween.
I have 7 years, so I'm also
Oh,
healthy.
awesome. Then yeah, it's a daily, thing that you got to work on.
Yeah.
I did come back from Iraq with post-traumatic stress disorder. Absolutely. In 2005, I saw some horrific things. I participated in some horrific things. Things that are not normal in regular society, atrocities, carnage, loss. Um, so in 2005, the whole mental health thing was not spoken about. It was not even like, it was, what do you call that? It was like
I know you.
taboo.
Yes, taboo. Yeah, good
It
word.
was taboo. So I came back lost. I was 20 years old when I came back. I spent 13 months in Iraq, and I was self-medicating with alcohol. And I would eventually turn to drugs as well, cocaine, methamphetamines. And I don't blame my drinking on my PTSD because, like I said, by default, I think I'm already an alcoholic, but,
Yeah,
but it did exasperate. And it was like putting fuel on a fire.
yeah,
And I didn't see a way out. I didn't think I was going to make it out alive. Uh,
yeah.
I didn't think I was going to survive what I was doing. I was living extremely recklessly. I mean, this is back home.
Yeah.
I was getting in trouble with the law. I was ruining relationships, damaging relationships. I was very unpleasant to be around, and I could not, for the life of me, figure it out until I sought help at the VA hospital.
So that was the key for you. That helped you get out.
Oh yeah, I guess you can call it. I hit my bottom.
Yeah.
I totaled my truck, but it wasn't the fact that I totaled my truck that made me have the realization. I believe it was the accumulation of it all that I had endured. Like, hey, I'm out of my 9 lives. I've used up way more than 9 lives, and there's a reason why I can't die, right? Because I think towards that time, my goal was to die. My
Yeah.
goal was to because I was suffering so much.
And you felt like that realization, that like moment of like, there's a reason I'm still here. There's something I've got to do.
That coupled in I was about to lose my job. I was about to lose my fiance. My dad had just, gave up on me. Yeah, I was feeling it. I felt it, and I felt it.
And did you start working in the correctional facilities after that, once sober? Was that when that started?
No, I started working so the first 3 years of my career, I was still consuming alcohol.
Yeah.
So I got sober at the 3 year mark of my career. And then you know what? Miraculously, things started getting better for me. I
Yeah, it's
started
funny how that works, right?
I started getting promotions at work, specialized positions. Like all of a sudden, people loved me, and
Yeah.
it's yeah, wasn't ending up in jail anymore. And it was a direct correlation of seeking help and treatment.
So your story is amazing. And like you said, there's a million ways we can go. There's a lot of interesting, deep topics. But when it comes to this series, the Vice series, and gangs, and what you've witnessed, you come from a combat experience. You've seen and participated in things, like you said, most people, lucky for them, never will. And then
Right.
you're in this high stakes, high stress, violent, also circumstance, observing again. That's just like, it's beyond anything most people can understand. What once you're rising though in that world, in your work structure, what are some of the things you're seeing, and what are you noticing going on in the prison system, basically?
Well, I like how you touch base on my whole prior CDCR experience because just as we just discussed, that molded me. That molded me into the human and the man that I am and that I was, that during that time in my career. I was sober by that time, probably like 11 years sobriety, practicing a set of principles and foundation. So things started to conflict with me. The
Hmm.
stuff I was observing within the California Department of Correction and Rehabilitation, from within our own administration and our own policies was starting to conflict with me
With
to the
you,
point
like with the moral code you were developing, is what you're saying.
to the moral code, almost, not almost, it turned into a spiritual battle
Wow.
for me. So yeah, straight up, because and we can dive into just a topic like Fresno Bulldogs, purposely mixing Fresno Bulldogs with their enemies, whoever it may be, norteños, sureños, anybody else, knowing the repercussions and knowing the end result to me is deadly, dangerous, careless, incompetent, and unethical.
And do you have any like take on why? Like why do that? Like why put them?
It would be just the same as why did we invade Iraq? Why do these people in power get these bright ideas in their head that's going to benefit somebody? Somebody at the top gets benefited for these dumb, they're not even dumb decisions. They're very calculated,
Yeah.
but they're we are the ones that executed it at the bottom. I will say this, since I've filmed the episode on for Vice, people have got in contact with me that were there and said, Hector, we had ambulances on standby because we knew it was going to be a mass casualty event.
That's just crazy. Like orchestrate a government orchestrating essentially a mass casualty event.
There it is. You just hit the nail on the head, and that gave me chills when you said that. Government orchestrating a mass casualty event. It's exactly what happened.
You know, from the inside, were you also like, this is going to be a disaster? Like knowing it was coming.
I participated in similar integrations of inmates that should not have been integrated. I participated, actively participated. I shot inmates with the 40 millimeter, less lethal. And again, you want to talk about moral code. I had already served in Iraq. I had already fought enemy combatants on a battlefield. I did not feel honorable mixing enemies and then having to shoot them. Right? That's like a setup.
But you like you're kind of like battling like spiritual battle, but also just like, we go to work, we do what we got to do. Like we have other like, the personal priorities and just the bigger picture stuff where you're like, I got to show up to work, right? Whatever work is, like, and do what I'm asked to do and protect and serve in whatever way, right? So like, can you talk a little bit about the conflict, like the inner conflict, or like, what am I doing here? But I got to do this.
So me personally, and I can only assume other people experience the same thing. When something is new, probably to anybody, or when something is new to me, it takes a while for me to catch on, right? Because I mean, I don't know the full, and there was zero lack of communication from the higher up management down to the lower level troops. So we were having to figure out what was really happening, right? So that took a minute. Because I get a lot of feedback or used to like, hey, Hector, couldn't you just not mix them? You knew what you were doing. Initially, I was naive still, even as a 30-something-year-old man. You want to believe that your higher ups have the best interest of everybody in mind. Call that naive, but that's what you want to believe.
We're definitely raised to all believe that on some level,
Correct.
right?
But that's not reality, and definitely that's not reality in government, law enforcement, and politics.
Yeah.
So we're mixing them. We're trying to make the best of this horrible situation, but in reality, there was no best outcome. I didn't hang out long after, like after 2 years, I resigned. I quit, and that was rare. People just don't quit that job.
Yeah.
But I couldn't stop.
You've gone pretty high, and we're talking after November 22nd, right?
Yeah, because I resigned December 2022.
Yeah. So it wasn't long after that. You saw what you
Correct.
needed to see. What was that month like? Like after the incident with the Bulldogs, and then you were just like, I'm like wrestling with this, and then you're like, I'm done. I gotta go.
So I wasn't personally present for the Fresno Bulldog riot, but I'm very well versed in all California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation incidents because as a lieutenant, you have access to the computer system that shows you all incident reports and photographs and evidence.
Yeah.
So I knew that they were mixing the Fresno Bulldogs at Ironwood State Prison, which is in Blythe in Southern California, Calipatria State Prison, which is in the Imperial County, Southern California. And guess what? Every time they integrated them, it resulted in violence and
Yeah.
people getting hurt.
Yeah. Do you think they had is there an alternative they didn't explore? Like obviously there must have been, right? Or
If you're gonna ask what their motive or what their agenda or what their end game was I believe CDCR was trying to send a message to the Fresno Bulldogs saying, we control the show. We will put you wherever we want to put you. That's not that's not how we as peace officers we have a obligation to protect lives,
yeah.
to include the inmates' lives. It's in the policy.
Yeah. Yeah. So what did you do when you left?
I had a 4-year-old daughter at the time. She's now 6, gonna be 7. So I rarely share this part, but I was scared, man. I was scared. I was scared, but I have a faith in God and I have a, strong foundation. And I believe that was my calling. I believe that was my purpose to serve those years in the department because I wanted to retire. My
Yeah.
father retired after 22 years. I was hoping to go the full 28 years.
Yeah.
Think about it. I wouldn't ever consider myself quitting. Like that's not in the cards. But again, I believe that was a higher plan, a bigger purpose for me.
Yeah.
Um, so I have since then taken to YouTube, and for the last 2.5 years, I pretty much, I guess you can say commentary, kind of like the NFL has like Troy Aikman, who was a former quarterback.
That's right.
But I guess you can say I do commentary on corrections, but in reality, I'm just stating facts and what's really happening. And let me tell you, they are not happy about
Oh
it.
yeah.
They're not happy about it. They issued 2 search warrants on my personal email address,
Wow.
which is a violation of my First and Fourth Amendment right. But I'm not surprised, but I just need you guys to know that that actually did happen.
Yeah, because you're trying to say you're trying to shed some light on some things that people are not happy about.
I guess you can say I'm a whistleblower.
So this series is probably gonna, I mean, it's coming out. It's gonna be another one of those types of things. But were you were probably excited to get the call because you were like, yes, this is what I want to do now. Like I want to talk about these issues and put this news out there.
Oh, they're all blessings. Everything is on God's plan, right? I don't expect anything. I don't have any expectations. I just take it day by day and these opportunities present themselves, even like this interview right here. And I just speak from the heart and things just transpire and everything's working out. I'm very blessed, very
Yeah.
blessed.
Well, you're really open about it, which is incredible. I kind of want to get your take now just on some other current events because like we're seeing
Absolutely.
because I'm in Los Angeles right now.
Oh man.
And I am curious to hear you talk about again, we're kind of seeing a situation in this moment where we're looking at people who are peace officers, law enforcement, who are asked to be put in a situation that is potentially complicated and they're not sure what like you gotta like following orders higher ups, but motivations are unclear, like
Correct.
circumstances are unclear. Not even getting into the ice raid aspect of it. Just like there's people out there on the streets. Are they peaceful or are they not? What
Right.
pushes it over the edge? What does that do? You've been in those
100%.
situations, like in a different context. You've been the one who's, like you said, firing the bullets, right?
Great example. Great example. And yesterday I saw an article with Mayor Bass where the LAPD blew the whistle on something that transpired with the incident command post. So every time in law enforcement, when there's a big incident, we set up an incident command post. Pretty much it's like a headquarters, the brains of the operation. You get all the big wigs and computer monitors, and you kind of have an overview of the situation. You need
Yeah.
it. It's part of the strategy. Well, something that I read was that Mayor Bass inserted herself as the acting impromptu incident commander. So an incident commander is somebody that has overall authority of the incident. And I've seen this many of times where somebody in a leadership position will insert themselves. And I mean, it's kind of like I don't know, maybe the CEO of McDonald's who doesn't know how to do the fries or how to
Getting in
do
the
the
line.
order.
Yeah.
He comes over to the line and tries to tell everybody what to do, but he's messing everything up,
Yeah.
right? It's typical. You have a lot of that. I mean, if you want to call that micromanaging,
Yeah. That happens in every business, but it's not as fatal, let's say, as it can be.
you said it right there. That happens in every business. And I tell my mom too, Mom, I wouldn't care. I wouldn't care if people weren't dying. I
Right.
wouldn't care. I wouldn't say anything because, you know, I'm a realist. If somebody's messing up, you know, apples or oranges, I don't have a problem with that. But when you're mixing Fresno Bulldogs and Sureños, or, you know, protests in LA, and it's a real bad position. And you're right. And I make it, I'll tell you this. I mean, I had people reach out to me from the National Guard yesterday. California Army National Guard. And they said, Hector, we are getting kicked out of the armory right now because Governor Newsom does not want us in the state armory. Right. So I guess it's a battle right now between federal government and state government.
Yeah.
But who pays the price? The troops at the troop level.
Yeah. Boots on the ground, basically, or people,
Correct.
civilians.
Oh,
Well,
bro, I was a pawn for 20 years, man. I was a pawn. I was a boots on the ground.
yeah.
I've seen a lot.
Let me ask you, have you been watching also? It was really interesting getting your insights into that. Have you been watching United Gangs of America, and what have you learned or taken from it so far? You know, what's your perspective on it, on the other episodes that you aren't involved in?
So when it comes to major issues, right? I don't put my emotion into things, and I look at everything from a spiritual point of view, good versus evil, right? Because not every person that wears a suit and a tie is a good person.
No,
And
certainly not.
not every inmate that I met in prison was necessarily a bad person, right? I can honestly say they didn't do me dirty. They didn't, you know, manipulate me or hurt me. So it's how does each individual carry themselves and conduct themselves? Are they conducting themselves in a manner that's honorable, respectful, has integrity, or are you lying to people's faces and doing something behind their back? Um, I'm really good at reading people too, so that kind of helps me.
Yeah.
But that's how I view things. Like in the gangs, you know, people want to say send all California gang members to El Salvador prison. Well, realistically, that's not realistic. Also, to make California prisons like El Salvador's prison, that's not realistic either, because these guys are not going to go for it. The inmates are not going to tolerate that.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're going to fight.
Um, Yeah, I mean, we got to wrap soon, but kind of my last question on this is like, what's next? What other ways are you planning to take your story? Do you have other platforms you're thinking to go to, or ways you want to tell? Because you have a lot to tell.
Well, I mean, you know, Joe Rogan, you know, that's kind of always like a goal, and I know he's a big platform. Ultimately, I guess the bigger the platform, the better. Only reason is because more people can hear and see the truth.
Yeah,
I believe 2025 is a pivoting point for society, for Americans. Um, People are starting to realize what is true and what is not. Yeah, social media has a big play in that.
yeah,
Podcasts have a big play in that.
yeah. There's certainly a lot of disinformation out there, right?
A
So
lot, a
it's
lot.
great to hear from somebody who's been witness to certain things and can speak on them from firsthand experience. Uh,
But but the catch to that is I had to quit my job in order to do this, right? Because I would have been retaliated against.
that's right. You wouldn't have been safe, which is a terrifying thought, but just the reality of it.
Facts.
Hector, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate it.
Thank
Good
you.
luck and thanks for the work you do, man.
Thank you for having me.